what we've seen here is two very polar opposite speakers on the subject of vaccines. And just like we had earlier today with Dr. Lee Jones and Toby Young, it will be fascinating to host a debate on these subjects, and that is part of what we plan to do as part of Question Everything moving forward. I myself would have hundreds of questions for both speakers, but I want to give the opportunity to the floor to ask your questions. So please can we have the mic runners to come and ask the public audience questions, please. Lady at the back there, Tash.
Thank you for your speech. I understand your assertions that the vaccines are effective against COVID, reducing COVID deaths, and that's all good. But I'd like to understand how you can be positive on a vaccine with, from my point of view, such an appalling safety record. We've got 30,000 deaths reported in the UK, the US, and Europe, and we know that not every death is reported by a long shot. That's 30,000. Now, in the past, a vaccine has been pulled with a maximum of 53 deaths globally. So that is quite astonishing. We've got over 1 million adverse events reported in the UK alone, and in the US VAER system, the number of reported COVID vaccine deaths in the last 5 months is more than all reported deaths from all vaccines for the last 20 years.
Respond to that? My response to that is simple. That most vaccines are given to children or young adults who are extremely unlikely to die, whereas here we started off vaccinating the most vulnerable and elderly, for example, care home residents. And when you enter a care home in the UK, your median life expectancy is 462 days. So you expect far more deaths.
Does that mean it's okay to kill those numbers of people?
I do not accept your assertion. I do not accept your assertion.
Those
that
are
the
public
vaccine
numbers.
Is killing them.
They're official numbers reported on official systems.
Well, they are numbers of deaths recorded. That is not the recording of causality. Be very, very careful about association versus causality.
Please, the gentleman in the green.
Obviously, one of the main focuses of this variant discussion is the border. I mean, is there any point in the current policy, does it actually keep these variants out at all to keep the borders closed, or should we be looking to resume international travel?
I would resume international travel. Variants are going to emerge by themselves, or they're going to be imported. I do not think we can sensibly anticipate keeping them out long term.
Thank you. Lady at the back, please.
Thank you, Professor Livermore. My name is Sonia Elijah. I have a question for you. We're seeing a recent phenomenon of heavily vaccinated countries, and they're getting a surge in COVID cases. Recently, Erin Segal, Israel's COVID government advisor, said that we're seeing 56% of current severe COVID cases are in the fully vaccinated individuals. What do you have to say on that?
I think that's an extremely fair question, and we need to know the details, just how severe those cases are. I mean, 56% of the severe cases in vaccinated individuals. If vaccinated individuals account for the great majority, if everybody was vaccinated, then every residual severe case would be in a vaccinated individual. Are those people who, for whatever reason, have failed to make a good immune response? Are they people in whom the immunity swiftly faded? Are they people with some underlying immunosuppression? We need to understand far more of that. We need to understand whether it's a better idea to give people shots of 2 different vaccines rather than 1 vaccine.
Thank you. Gentleman over here, please.
It was reported quite widely today on social media that our new health secretary is one of these very people that has just been alluded to, namely he's been apparently double jabbed and has now tested positive. In fact, he hasn't tested positive, he's got symptoms but is awaiting the results of a PCR test. Is this unadulterated government-sponsored craziness in terms of response?
Forgive me, I've not been on social media all day or seen the particular report, and I'm loath to comment until I've seen
let's rephrase the question. In a hypothetical scenario where an individual has been double jabbed and is showing some symptoms and is awaiting the result of a PCR test and decides to self-isolate, is that not a definition of craziness?
I wouldn't go that far, no, I wouldn't. That we know that the evidence is that the vaccines give something between 70 and 90% protection against infection. Ergo, there is a 10 to 30% risk remaining, which should be less severe infection. So it's incomplete. It may well be that he is infected. Who's to say? But I mean, it's one comment on social media.
No, it's one comment from our health secretary. Yeah.
All right. Well, he's awaiting his results. So okay. Let's see.
Okay.
I mean, nobody, least of all, is saying that least of all myself, is saying that these vaccines give a complete and absolute protection. Nonetheless, they're the one thing that has been through proper clinical trials, which have established a degree of efficacy, albeit with many uncertainties and with very legitimate questions about what age bands one should vaccinate. Well, I've considerable sympathy for ivermectin, but the trials are also open to criticism. And as well, you are aware that there are presently 2 meta-analyses. Meta-analyses have been promoted as the way of taking a synthesis of evidence from multiple trials. And it is quite shocking, and I make no judgment one way or the other on this, I hasten to add, but it's quite shocking that we get different meta-analyses with ending up with radically different conclusions about ivermectin. Now, my own slight bias is towards thinking that ivermectin is likely to have some benefits. There's certainly far more evidence that ivermectin has benefits, for example, than face masks have benefits. Nevertheless, there is strong clinical trial evidence for multiple vaccines, and we have trials from Moderna and Pfizer with inherently similar vaccines which reinforce each other, mRNA vaccines, and we have trials from AstraZeneca, Gamaleya, Johnson & Johnson with adenovirus vector vaccines, all of which, again, reinforce each other. Well, safety data are included within the trial publication. I completely agree that there is a spectrum, as you go down the spectrum of ages, the balance of risk and benefit changes. And that should be discussed more openly rather than the pressure that we presently see even to vaccinate adolescents and potentially children. And you can see that even the JCVI is getting nervous there.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I appreciate this is a source of great debate. And of course, we've seen 2 very clear, different perspectives from 2 very different speakers. Now, on that point, I got word from my team during that conversation with both Peter McCullough and David Livermore that our feed on Facebook has been censored for talking about vaccines. But this is a serious point, because what we've seen is 2 people at the opposite end of the spectrum arguing their point, but we cannot hold that debate in a public forum. What we've enabled today, and I appreciate there's certainly lots of us in the room, or people within the room who may see the world differently, from not just David or Peter McCullough or any of our speakers, but the fact that we're having the debate and the discussion, to me, is the most important piece.
And on that, I absolutely and totally agree that it is disgraceful that such a debate should be censored. We have disagreement between me and some of the audience here. That's absolutely fine. But that debate should be open and clear.
Yep. Absolute open and clean debate without slander, without smearing.
Absolutely. That is how science is supposed to work.
Thank you.